This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
12th night. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Webster. That Shakespearean title also describes the count on consecutive U.S. strikes on Iran, a dozen rounds, all aimed at degrading the Islamic regime's ability to attack U.S. forces and disrupt global commerce in the Strait of Hormuz. Fox's Trey Yinks.
CENTCOM says these strikes were once again focused on degrading Iran's ability to threaten vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. While no vessels were attacked in the Strait overnight, a Saudi-owned oil tanker was targeted in the Red Sea by Houthi forces in Yemen.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Iran's leaders have only themselves to blame.
Iran is begging us, both directly and indirectly. Let's do a deal. Let's talk. Iran is begging every day. The problem with Iran is every time they make a deal, the people that are in charge there, they either break it or they want to change it.
Iran says it will keep attacking targets in the Middle East as long as those U.S. attacks continue. Yesterday, the remains of 4 U.S. soldiers killed in Iranian attacks this past weekend were received in a dignified transfer ceremony at Dover Air Force Base. One of the fallen was from New York State, and her Queens neighborhood is planning a candlelight vigil to honor 28-year-old Sergeant Angel Rampersad, whose body was among those returned to the U.S. yesterday.
This is a tragic loss for our nation. It's a tragic loss for our community. More importantly, it's a tragic loss for the family. We're all heartbroken.
It's devastating, especially when it, hits so close to home.
Rampersad had fulfilled her mother's wishes and attended John Jay College for 2 years, then enlisted in the Army about 7 years ago. War also has a steep monetary cost, and House Republicans have pushed through a proposed spending plan reflecting that. ABC's Peter Charamboulos.
The blueprint allows for up to $73 billion to cover the military conflict with Iran, as the Pentagon warned it's running out of money to conduct operations there. The resolution also includes a long-shot bid to pass components of the Save America Act alongside $12 billion in disaster aid for farmers. Speaker Mike Johnson celebrated the legislation.
It's a very consequential week for the American people, and we've delivered once again.
However, Senate Majority Leader John Thune says he doesn't plan to hold a vote on that resolution anytime soon, possibly as a hedge against a September government shutdown if Democrats move to do so. The most obvious impact of the war for many Americans is the roller coaster nature of gas prices during the conflict. After falling during the few weeks of a ceasefire, they're on the rise again. The national per gallon average is back over $4, $4.09 this morning. New York's average $4.20, Pennsylvania $4.24. Despite the Middle East turmoil, the Trump administration has forged a nuclear power deal with Saudi Arabia, a long-term multi-billion-dollar partnership that would allow the Saudis to create a civilian nuclear power program. Energy Secretary Chris Wright.
President Trump's agenda in the Middle East has been commerce, not conflict. Saudi Arabia has been an ally of the United States since the nation's forming, and I'm thrilled in our efforts and where this is going. This will be top level, highest standards for nuclear safety and safeguards.
As required by the Atomic Energy Act, that plan has to survive congressional review, with many Democrats already criticizing the U.S.-Saudi nuke plan. From the Persian Gulf to our own southern Gulf, which is dealing with the effects of Tropical Storm Bertha. ABC's Victor Akendo is in New Orleans.
Bertha making landfall in Louisiana, the center of the storm, passing right over us here in New Orleans, winds gusting at about 45 miles an hour. At one point, this entire area was underwater. That storm surge from Lake Pontchartrain inundating the streets here.
Bertha is expected to make landfall again in Texas sometime this afternoon, then move further inland this evening, at which point it'll start to lose its winds. The Food and Drug Administration is still trying to find the source of that gastrointestinal illness, which has sickened thousands of people. More than 70 new cases of cyclosporiasis were reported this week, an illness caused by parasites linked to food and water. It causes nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. It sent more than 300 people to the hospital. The FDA says it still doesn't know exactly what's causing the entire outbreak. Well, call it delay of game. Detroit Mayor Mary Sheffield says she's cautiously optimistic that the Gordie Howe International Bridge will open on Monday. Sheffield, however, is still concerned the U.S. federal government might delay the opening of the second bridge that would link Detroit with Windsor, Ontario.
We're kind of waiting for the indication that things are going to proceed, and then we'll move forward accordingly.
Named for the famed hockey player, it was supposed to open in June. Canadian officials this week canceled a joint ceremony with Americans that was set for Friday. They'll hold their own tomorrow. Canada also says they remain committed to opening the bridge on July 27th. Well, NBC's Saturday Night Live, not exactly known as a family-friendly show, especially in more recent years, but within its ranks of comic actors, Victoria Jackson stood apart for being different. The Christian shared her faith with unsaved fellow cast members. Here she recounts to Focus on the Family's Jim Daly on his podcast the time she gifted them audio Bibles.
I got the Bible on cassette, and I gave it to each of them all wrapped up for a Christmas present I put outside of their dressing room door. 20 years went by. I was doing stand-up with Kevin Nealon, and I said, Kevin, did I really give you the Bible on cassette, or is that like a dream I had? And he goes, no, you really did that. He says, I still have it on my shelf, and I think I've listened to number 3 and number 5. And I was like, awesome! I did do that, because that was my mission field.
Jackson also told of how famed SNL newscaster Norm Macdonald once asked her why they hadn't dated, and she told him it was because he didn't go to church, hoping to plant a seed. Later, hearing from a pastor after Macdonald's death from cancer that he had asked him how to be saved and said the sinner's prayer on the phone with his pastor. Still to come here on the Noon Report, I'll look at the top stories around New York and Pennsylvania, sports with Randy, and later our Sarah Harnish with today's Faith Under Fire feature.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams looking at some fine weather today. We'll do it again tomorrow. We'll have forecast details up in 10.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Now checking those stories making news where you live in New York and Pennsylvania. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins demanding answers from Governor Kathy Hochul over the conversion of farmland to solar farms around the Empire State. Here's Family Life's Jeremy Miller.
The effort puts farmers in a tough spot, with one telling Spectrum News that solar panels are now part of their crop rotation.
It was a hard decision to make, but the income that we can make from solar panels is far greater than anything we can make growing corn or soybeans.
Farmers are looking for ways to protect their bottom line as they navigate federal changes that impact their workforce and rises in fuel and fertilizer costs. State Republican lawmakers say the state's energy policies have laid the foundation for the large-scale conversion of farmland into industrial energy sites that often have little to no benefit to their local communities. The New York State Comptroller's office says New York farms are seeing a decline in farmland as it gets used for other purposes. Jeremy Miller, Family Life News.
Thank you, Jeremy. Investigators still looking for the cause of a fire that destroyed a beloved farm market in Penfield, New York, early yesterday. Fire crews spent hours battling the 2-alarm blaze that swept through Bauman's farm market shortly after midnight Tuesday night. The Bauman family says the fire destroyed the main building of the market, though their greenhouses did survive. The community is rallying around the Baumans. Gary Herman, who runs the nearby rival Herman's Farm Market in Cider Mill, tells WHEC he's put out a collection box for donations.
There's a million different little things that you need, and if we can raise a little money to help them out, give them some support, we're always looking to support other farmers.
Kathy Klein has been a regular Bauman's customer.
I've been here probably at least once a week, getting whatever vegetables I need. It became a tradition to come on Mother's Day and get all of our flowers.
No injuries in that blaze. The Bauman family has operated that market since 1908. The Wayne County Sheriff's Office looking into an apparent murder-suicide that occurred just outside the village of Clyde yesterday morning. Deputies found a man and a woman dead from gunshot wounds at a home on Route 31. It's not known what led to the shooting, but the Sheriff's Office says there's no threat to the community. Tense moments, though, on a Western New York campus last night. We get that story from Family Life's Dee Haley.
A shelter-in-place order issued at Buffalo State University last night has been lifted. The shelter-in-place order was issued on campus around 8 p.m. According to university social media, the public was asked to avoid the area due to a security incident nearby. Officials lifted that order around 9 p.m. Buffalo police are continuing to investigate a shooting near the campus where multiple vehicles were involved. Officials say several subjects are in custody and one firearm was recovered. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
Thank you, Dee. A Montour, New York man is facing a slew of charges after state police say he intentionally struck a construction zone flagger on Ridge Road in Horseheads. Happened on July 14th. Police accused 20-year-old Ryan Socia of revving the engine of his 1999 Ford Mustang as the flagger displayed a stop sign, then intentionally hit her and drove off. Following an investigation, Socia was tracked down and arrested at his home on Sunday. The charges against him include second-degree felony assault. The National Weather Service confirms a tornado in the southern tier Tuesday. Severe storms ripped through Broome and Chenango counties, and there were multiple tornado warnings at one point. The National Weather Service survey team checked out the damage along with WBNG.
Clearly here we've got the convergence of some tree damage, and you want to see in a tornado, since it's rotating, you want to see damage that's left behind kind of pointing at itself. And we have snaps, we have kind of a lawnmower look to that tree.
The survey team confirmed that a twister touched down in the towns of Barker and Greene. There was a second EF0 tornado in Westchester County. That makes 23 in the Empire State so far this year. Pennsylvania had 3 more on Tuesday, bringing the year's tally there to 22. Pennsylvania lawmakers have until tomorrow to act on a state Supreme Court ruling that struck down mandatory life without parole sentences for second-degree murder convictions. District attorneys across the state are urging the legislature to pass a law before that deadline. Blair County DA Pete Weeks tells WJAC that if nothing is passed, it'll become a free-for-all.
The judges will not have any specific guidance or authority to rely upon for what type of sentencing framework they should follow. And you probably see a lot of sentencing disparity, so there won't be a lot of consistency.
Clearfield County District Attorney Ryan Sayer says failing to pass legislation could force prosecutors to revisit old cases and locate victims' relatives, depending on how the courts proceed.
Every district attorney is going to have to bring all these defendants back into their individual counties to have a resentencing, find whatever family members are around.
A bipartisan group of senators has passed legislation that proposes a mandatory minimum of 35 years with the potential for a life sentence, depending on the case. The House has not yet voted on that bill or similar legislation and remained divided on whether to pass new sentencing legislation. Pennsylvania State Senator Doug Mastriano a step closer to becoming the U.S. ambassador to Slovakia. We get that story from Family Life's Sarah Harnish.
Mastriano's nomination passed through committee, and now he faces a floor vote in the Senate, which Republicans control by 5 seats. Pennsylvania Republican Senator Dave McCormick, who serves on the committee, called Mastriano a highly qualified nominee, citing his military and scholarly experience. Mastriano is a former U.S. Army officer and has represented Adams and Franklin counties since 2019. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, the Little League World Series is less than 4 weeks away now. All but 2 spots in the international bracket have been filled, with the Europe and Africa regionals being decided this weekend. The Canada and U.S. regionals set for early August. The Little League World Series begins in Williamsport on August 19th. On tomorrow's Staycations feature, we'll hear from Adam Thompson. He runs the World of Little League Museum in Williamsport. Speaking of baseball, the Bucks and the Bombers played a lot of it yesterday. Here's Randy with sports.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Mark, the Yankees and Pirates played 2 after Tuesday's rainout, and it was Pittsburgh who won the opener in 10 innings, 5-3. Ben Rice tied the game in the 7th with a 3-run blast, but the Bucks scored twice in the 10th to win it. In the nightcap, welcome back Max Fried. He allowed only 1 hit over 5 innings of work, and New York scored twice in the 7th. That was all the scoring in the ballgame, 2-0 the final. The Mets got long balls from Marcus Semien and Brett Beatty, but they fell just short of the Brew Crew 4-3. In Philadelphia, the Dodgers got a go-ahead home run from Max Muncy in the 6th, and then Tommy Edman hit a bases-clearing triple in the 8th. L.A. went on to a 9-5 victory. The Boston Red Sox streak continued, and then it didn't. The Bo Sox matched a franchise record 15-game winning streak with a 6-3 victory over the Orioles, but they played a second game. And that's when the streak came to an end as Baltimore won at 5-1. It was Boston's first loss since July 1st. Elsewhere around Major League Baseball, your winners were the Royals over the Giants 5-4. The Nats shut out the Rockies 8-zip. Arizona pummeled the Athletics 15-5. The Reds 5, Seattle 3. The Cards shut out the Angels 1-0. Minnesota 10-6 winners over Cleveland. The Rays doubled up Toronto 4-2. Atlanta edged San Diego 7-6. Tigers knocked off the Cubs 5-1. Texas fell to the White Sox 4-2. And Houston a 5-2 winner over the Marlins. That is a look at sports.
Thank you, Randy. Still to come here on the Noon Report, a recap of the day's top stories. Today's Faith Under Fire feature focusing on churches' legal rights. And hey, would you like some sprinkles with that?
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Along with the well-deserved patriotic pride, the celebration of America's 250th anniversary also requires a bit of introspection, especially about America's beginnings and the issue of slavery. Many of the same founding fathers who inspired the cause of liberty in so many kept other people in chains. However, there's one founding father who boldly opposed slavery. His name was Dr. Benjamin Rush, and a new documentary entitled Rush, the American Revolution's Indispensable Doctor, author and historian Dr. Joseph LeConte describes the work and life of this remarkable man. In the process, LeConte brings clarity to the complications and the contradictions of the American story. Dr. Benjamin Rush was one of 55 signers of the Declaration of Independence. He graduated from college at age 15, had his own practice as a physician by age 24. He served as an Army doctor in the new American military, was a chemistry professor who wrote the first chemistry textbook published in America, and he also authored many treatises on medical education. He was also a social reformer. He's a key influence on Thomas Paine, the author of the vital booklet Common Sense. And unlike many of the other founders, Rush believed that the claim to God-given rights had to apply to everyone, including slaves. Rush encouraged revolutionary thinking against British rule while also challenging slavery. As Dr. LeConte described it, and I quote, Rush rejects the assumption that Africans are an inferior race. He cites evidence of their ingenuity and humanity as proof that they're equal to the Europeans. Addressing the city's clergy, Rush denounces them for using the Bible to sanctify their crimes against humanity. End quote. Rush, this champion of human dignity, was a founding member of the Philadelphia Society for Alleviating the Miseries of Public Prisons, what's called the Pennsylvania Prison Society today, and an ardent abolitionist, joining abolitionist societies and writing pamphlets against the institution of slavery. Each of the activities on Rush's very impressive resume were informed by his faith, specifically his conviction that every person is made in the image of God and therefore worthy of dignity and respect. His observations on the importance of work for human well-being also reflected his Christian worldview. One significant area of study for Rush was mental illness. He argued that people with mental illness should not be treated as criminals, but rather brought into normal hospital settings. He also believed that productive work could aid in their recovery. These ideas proved successful strategies for treating many of his patients. Rush's stand on abolition had been the historical position of the church. In his day, it was being advanced by evangelicals and others in Britain and America. Rush served as an advisor and a public supporter for Richard Allen in the founding of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Benjamin Rush demonstrated how a Christian worldview needs to be lived, not just believed. As Dietrich Bonhoeffer would write much later, Christianity is not an otherworldly religion. It both describes the world as it actually is, and it invites us to join God's work, not just by preparing for heaven, but by repairing what's wrong in this, his world. Dr. LeConte's excellent documentary about this lesser-known founding father is available on Amazon through the Wonder Project. It not only provides insights into the origin of liberty and the American experiment, it reminds us of what can happen when Christian conviction and moral clarity meet, as it did for Dr. Benjamin Rush. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint. Today's Breakpoint was co-authored with Dr. Glenn Sunshine. And for more resources or to share this commentary with others, please visit colsoncenter.org/radio.
Thank you, sir. Well, things are brightening up outside. Kevin's got our forecast.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. We're in cruise control mode weather-wise now for the next couple of days. Sprawling high pressure bringing fair skies and delightful air. That nice weather will carry us into the start of the weekend as well. By Sunday, a disturbance and some moisture will arrive, producing a couple of scattered showers. Not a washout, but Saturday looks to be the better of the 2 weekend days. Our call for this afternoon, plenty of sunshine and a high temperature in the 70s. Tonight, clear moonlit skies. Cool, but not as cool as last night. Low temperatures in most areas in the 50s. Ample sunshine and a bit warmer tomorrow and Saturday. High temperatures tomorrow around 80, and we're in the 80s on Saturday.
All right, thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm Mark Webster. Thank you again for joining us. Here's a recap of some of the day's big stories. A dozen and counting. The U.S. will likely make it 13 when night falls in Iran, pounding away at targets thought to be key to the Islamic regime's ability to attack U.S. bases, its neighbors, and ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran keeps firing away as well, targeting those interests. And now Iran-backed Houthis have entered the fray, attacking 2 Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea, further widening the war. Fox's Trey Yingst.
This is certainly an escalation because it means it's not just rhetoric from the Houthis in Yemen. And Secretary of State Rubio said, look, they're getting dragged into this conflict by Iran. They were smart to stay out of Operation Epic Fury.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio responding to a recent Iranian warning.
Their foreign minister the other day or something about their policy is an eye for an eye. The president's policy is a head for an eye. Honestly, that's what it's going to be. I mean, they will pay a very heavy price. Every time these people do a deal, they either break it or after they make it, they want to change the deal. So they're probably not ready to do a deal yet, but they will be soon.
The White House will hold a briefing today in which Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt will likely update the U.S. war effort. Later, President Trump is expected to announce that some major utility companies are pledging to pay for the increased electricity costs associated with AI data centers. The top Republican on the House Judiciary Committee wants the Justice Department to prosecute former special counsel Jack Smith.
Smith led a criminal probe into President Trump's role in the January the 6th Capitol riot and into Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents. On Wednesday, Committee Chairman Jim Jordan of Ohio sent a letter to the Justice Department claiming Smith seemingly made willfully and intentionally false statements during a congressional deposition last year. Smith's attorneys denied the claim and said the special counsel faithfully and fearlessly performed his duties by following the facts. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Jeffrey Epstein's former private investment banker will likely get a grilling on Capitol Hill today. The House Oversight Committee is scheduled to interview Jess Staley, who was a finance executive for J.P. Morgan Chase for 30 years and who managed wealthy clients, including the late sex offender. Staley agreed to the closed-door interview after his appearance was requested as part of the committee's inquiry of the federal Epstein probe. Tropical storm Bertha is moving westward near the Louisiana coast, headed toward Texas. NBC's George Solis says the storm made its first landfall about 40 miles east of New Orleans.
The storm continuing to move west. It is expected to make a second landfall near Galveston, Texas today as a weaker tropical storm. Still, the concern over some rain and some localized flooding cannot be ruled out. Many so grateful that this storm was not more severe.
Residents along the coast are still bracing for up to 4 inches of rain, as well as some storm surge and flooding. The Department of Education is looking into 5 medical schools for allegedly promoting diversity in their admissions. The department says it's investigating medical schools at Dartmouth College, East Carolina University, St. Louis University, Western University, and William Carey University for alleged racial discrimination. We're up to 11,000 cases reported of cyclosporiasis, 41 states checking in with cases linked to the stomach parasite. The CDC says it's continuously monitoring the case count, so are consumers.
I know it's
pretty widespread, but in terms of total numbers, I think the cases are still relatively small.
So it's like, what's going on with that, right? Yeah, I'm definitely wondering where it's coming from, because if I'm eating fruits and veggies, getting these smoothies.
I had a salad yesterday and my stomach is really messed up today.
Officials say one multi-state outbreak is linked to Iceberg Lettuce Taylor Farms, one of the companies that recalled its iceberg lettuce sourced from central Mexico. So far, the highest number of cases is Michigan, followed by New York, Ohio, and North Carolina. And SpaceX is getting ready to test launch its massive Starship rocket this evening from its facility in Starbase, Texas.
The mission was previously planned for July 16th, but scrubbed at the last minute because of an issue with several of the rocket's 33 Raptor engines. If the launch goes as planned, it'll be the 13th test flight for Starship. The launch window opens at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Time, with officials keeping a close eye on the weather forecast, with Tropical Storm Bertha still lurking. I'm Monica Nelson.
And you're listening to the Noon Report on Family Life.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm your host, Sarah Harnish. With me today, Independence Law Center attorney Randy Wanger. We're talking churches' rights. There is a large case out of Collier Township, Pennsylvania, that you are representing. Holy Trinity Ukrainian Catholic Church has been told by the township that it can't do construction on its own 41 acres of land because the zoning ordinance prohibits construction of churches anywhere within the township. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, we're representing this church. It was planted by a group of refugees from the Ukraine during the time of the Soviet Union. So they certainly understood where they were coming from, that there was religious persecution. And it's a shame that they would be finding this kind of hostility to religion here. But they settled in a community in Allegheny County near Pittsburgh, and they own a large tract of land where they want to build a place of worship and retreat. They wanted to build a beautiful structure in the style of the Eastern Church with those onion domes. And the reason they wanted to do that was simple. They wanted to proclaim Christ. They wanted to declare Christ to all the passersby who would see the church, see the cross, and remember Christ. But the township isn't allowing them to move forward with the project because the township's zoning ordinance doesn't allow any churches to be built. And so they were just running into this discretionary morass from the township that was not only saying no to what they were trying to do, but even in a scaled down version, it can only be so high and you can ring bells only so long and you can meet for only these purposes. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, and what's interesting is they allow other types of properties to be built, like schools, health clubs, amphitheaters, ice rinks, offices, just not churches. Why?
Right. Even in the same area, on the same street, they have the Carpenters Union Hall, which is used for political events, but here you can't use it. And so I've seen this play out time and again, where sometimes I would just attribute it to kind of a callousness toward religion that says, boy, we'd really rather have something else here than a church, because if it's a church, the churches, like certain other institutions, are nonprofit. We don't want nonprofit. We want the property taxes. But it's more than that. Here in this particular case, one of the township officials was talking about, wow, we really dodged a bullet here. Consider this particular religious use, and they're pro-life. So it was the religious beliefs of the church that was the ground of some of the hostility here, which is precisely why townships aren't supposed to have this level of discretion in saying yes or no to a church.
Is it legal by U.S. law to ban a church from building?
Well, no, it's not. There's a federal law called, it's RLUIPA, which stands for the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act. But there was widespread understanding that there's a lot of discretion that local government has, and it can be used in a way to effectively ban churches, shut down churches, make it really hard for them to survive. And so Congress thought, we really can't have this happen. And so they can get into court, go forward, and be able to show, hey, you're allowing all these other things and you're claiming it's traffic or something, but hey, all of these things cause more traffic, so you shouldn't be prohibiting us. So it's a very useful law in a situation like this because you don't really have to get to the motivations. You can just point out, wow, they're allowing secular uses, but they're not allowing religious uses, and that needs to be fixed.
Where is this case and what happens next?
Okay. We filed in federal court in the Western District of Pennsylvania. We asked for an injunction to allow the church to be able to move forward, not in the sense that, hey, you can get everything you want and do anything that you want to do, but at least to go forward without the big zoning impediment over them trying to move forward in building. And we lost that preliminary injunction in the district court, so it's on appeal at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, which covers Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
Why defend a church in a case like this? Can you tell me why it matters so much to you?
Ronald Reagan once said that freedom is never more than one generation from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed down for them to do the same. So we see these same problems happen again and again. And I think in some countries, we would probably just give up. Wow, this is way too hard. What's the big deal? They can move somewhere else. They can sell their land and do something. But here in America, it shouldn't be that way. We should have the ability to raise churches and not have hostility against the religious belief of those churches. And so when I think about the work of the Independence Law Center and the work of First Liberty Institute out of Texas, if we can keep the doors open for the gospel, we're doing good work.
Attorney Randy Wenger, you can follow this case at independencelaw.org.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Don't forget, you can check out every one of our Family Life original news features online anytime at Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, or FamilyLife.org. Finally at noon.
Good morning. One donut with sprinkles. And wait a minute. These are not sprinkles, sir.
What do you mean?
A Jolly Rancher is not a sprinkle, sir. Perhaps in Shangri-La they are, but not here.
Oh. Well, Homer loved them, and odds are you do too. Happy National Sprinkle Day. The colorful little sugary toppings for our favorite treats have an interesting history. It goes back at least to the 18th century, but it was 1913 when Dutch confectioner Irvin de Jong created something by the name of hagelslag, intended as a topping for bread and butter. In 1930s America, they became known as Jimmy's, used as a cake topping mostly. Some say a Pennsylvania factory came up with those. Their first use as an ice cream topping credited to Dr. Edward Brigham, who in the 1940s began offering rainbow-colored ones as a topping for ice cream cones, charging an additional penny to raise money for the Jimmy Fund. Sprinkles go by a lot of different names around the globe. In French, nonpareil, a.k.a. nonpareils. They're messes in Indonesia, and in Belgium, muizenstrantjes, or something like that, which translates to mouse droppings. And that's the world we live in for Thursday, July 23rd, 2026. As always, we thank you for listening. I'm Mark Webster, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.